Well, hello there and welcome, and I hope you all had a wonderful week. Well, here we are midway through June, and that means we're midway through Pride Month. This year, the annual celebration of the LGBTQ communities has stirred up, more controversy than ever before, it seems. It's brought out plenty of folks saying that there's a right way and a wrong way for brands to approach marketing during Pride Month. But is there really? Are you going to Bud Light yourself this year? Yeah, that's now a verb. Want to know more? Well, this is 5 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes this week of what you need to lead in marketing. Let's roll. Hello everybody, Robert Rose here with the news. It is what's new, but more importantly, as you all know, it's what's important in the world of marketing. And for the best practices in content and marketing, you can always head on over to contentmarketinginstitute.com. So yes, June is here, which means Pride Month is here. And by the way, this month of awareness and now celebration of the LGBT community isn't a new phenomenon. The entire concept began on June 28th. Yeah, that's right. That's my birthday. So if anyone wants to get me anything, June 28th. Anyway, my birthday, June 28th, in 1969 with the Stonewall riots in New York City. 1 year later, in 1970, the marches began. And in June 1999, 30 years after the Stonewall riots, President Clinton at the time declared every June to be Pride Month. And brands have contributed in marketing in good and bad ways every year since. But 2023 seems different. It seems particularly heated this year. Amid a perceived retreat from Pride support by brands like Budweiser and Target in response to protests and threats from small but very vocal groups, media outlets are now claiming that brands have really started to pull back from Pride marketing. But have they really? Really? It feels very different from last year when brands like MasterCard hosted a Pride Plaza in the metaverse, Peloton had new featured clothing and highlighted their LGBTQ instructors, Nordstrom highlighted retail brands that themselves had Pride campaigns from Converse, Doc Martens, and Vans, and even Target. They've been celebrating Pride for 10 years, and they had a number of clothing events and other initiatives for Pride. And yeah, even Bud Light had their rainbow bottles and a Bud Light Pride River Parade in San Antonio and donated $200,000 to the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And I don't remember Kid Rock shooting up a bunch of cans of Bud Light in protest to any of that last year. Ironically, actually, Bud Light's more subdued 2022 efforts, last year's efforts, they seem to actually be a reaction to their 2021 campaign, where they featured billboards such as this one that said, "Let's grab beers tonight, Queens." That didn't go down too well with the intended audience. So it's a whole other controversy now. But while I can't find any specific numbers, it does seem like, with one or two big brand exceptions, the idea of Pride celebrations being pulled back by brands is really more of a media-driven perception than actual reality. Rather, in 2023, it seems that there's a greater perception of risk. Or maybe it just seems harder. And brands are ending up asking the exact wrong question. That question being, how do we create a memorable marketing message? And remember, that's what this is at the end of the day, a marketing message that basically resonates with all audiences. But that can't be the goal, to resonate with all audiences. Or worse, be so unremarkable that we actually resonate with no audience. No audience cares. What's my take on all this? Well, to be clear, to be very, very clear here, my take isn't particularly important. I actually find that helping to amplify voices in this community is a much better approach. Now, that said, as a marketer, I do find it puzzling that brands like Target and Bud Light continue to struggle with this, with some, namely Bud Light, struggling in such a ham-fisted way, especially when so many other brands seem to do this so well. Apple comes to mind this year, as well as Absolute Vodka, Lego, Sesame Street. And interestingly, Sesame Street, well, they received tons of pushback from that small vocal minority. And what did they do? Nothing. They just continued with their content plan. And therein lies some of what we can actually learn. The first thing I would point out to brands that are considering messaging, or by the way, celebrating Pride or the acknowledgement of any other community, is to think content and brand, not sales and transactions. Now, there are, of course, products that are specifically and always targeting these specific communities, and so there are exceptions here. But put simply, unless it's about you, it's not about you, not this time. And to be safe, it's probably not about you all the time. As brands, we have to realize it's not our role to give the LGBTQ community permission to be self-accepting or celebrate. That community does not need or want your brand's permission to be them. Doing something that immediately sets up your brand as appropriating the community's identity or to be on the side of something, different, like this Bud Light ad from 2021 or this burger ad, ugh. The whole point should be that you're celebrating the inclusion of who they are. As I've often said about content marketing, the point isn't helping people to change to become more like your brand. It's about how your brand supports them accepting themselves, celebrating themselves, and becoming more of who they are. The other fundamental thing to understand is when you create messages about pride, or again, any other celebrations of specific communities, you cannot start from a position of how are we going to defend this decision. If your marketing team's first discussion is, how will we defend this decision? Then you should probably think twice about the decision. It's clear that the company doesn't have or hasn't established any fundamental belief in that decision. This is where Bud Light throwing Dylan Mulvaney and its marketing executives under the bus was really taking a bad decision to new levels of bad marketing. But don't confuse not defending your decision with not having reactions ready of defending your point of view. Brands should always consider how to react when a loud minority objects to your point of view. As I've also said about great marketing, if we are willing to be really right for someone, we have to be willing to be really wrong for someone else. Here we can look at how Sesame Street said absolutely nothing, and also how Garth Brooks, when talking about his Nashville bar serving Bud Light, said, if you want to be an asshole, drink somewhere else. What we all say in our marketing must go beyond compartmentalizing messaging to optimize for segmentation. Everything we will say, the brand must believe. Whether or not we choose to say it in the moment or not, we can always choose not to say the things that we believe. But if we choose to say the things we don't believe, we shouldn't be surprised when the audience doesn't believe us either, or worse, starts creating our beliefs for us. But that's just me. What are you doing to amplify voices for pride celebration in your marketing team, your content team, your business? Let me know in the comments, won't you? But for now, that's it. Happy Pride. That's 5 minutes of what you need to use to lead in your marketing strategy. I'm Robert Rose, and as always, remember, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. I'll see you next week.